Look at the person who's 30, 35. If you really don't want to be that person when you get to that level, then you're probably at the wrong place. 8, 9 p.m., get to the show, edit the videos overnight, not sleep, get back to the office. It still feels weird for me to call myself a filmmaker. It's not always the easiest thing having the freedom that you think that you want. All right, so it's taken me about 83 years to make this first video, but here we are. I wanted to make this channel about a lot of different things, including filmmaking, photography, and a lot of the creative mental space around that. If you didn't know, which you probably don't because this is my first video, my name is Nikhil Chhitre, and I'm a filmmaker and a photographer here in New York City. I feel like I need an outlet to talk about just all the things that are going through my head in the creative space, and I guess this is what we're gonna do. So I'm primarily at work in the fashion and lifestyle space. I've been doing this for a few years now, but it wasn't always a clear path. Here's the beginning of that story. I quit my investment banking job at 24 and decided that I never wanted to work for anyone ever again. So how did I get there? I grew up always wanting to run my own business. I didn't know exactly what it would be at the time, but I grew up in a household that was pretty entrepreneurial in the sense that even though my parents had their regular day jobs, they also had a venture for themselves. So me and my sister grew up in an environment where we could kind of see someone making something for themselves and seeing that it was really possible. The general theme around growing up for me and my sisters was like, use your brain and create something. That was kind of the idea. My parents didn't really want us to just do the normal thing. So I think that that's really a big part of why I am the way that I am, I guess. My mom was in a band when she was around my age. My dad's been an artist for as long as I can remember. Could always kind of see that creative thing. So anytime my parents are proud of me for doing something, I feel like, you know, it's just in my blood. It's just the thing that they kind of passed on to me. My experience at school was a bit different though, because I went to a predominantly Asian high school, and the focus was all on grades, extracurricular activities, you know, being president of 3 or 4 different clubs, things like that. And that really made me put myself into that hierarchy. And it wasn't until after I went to college that I realized that the world wasn't really like that. Fast forward to college, I ended up deciding to do investment banking because I felt like that was a place where I would eventually get to the entrepreneurship that I was thinking about as a kid. So I figured, you know, do investment banking, go into PE, maybe join one of the portfolio companies from there or create something myself. That was kind of the rough plan, but this was also at 16, so I didn't really know what I was talking about. The way that I found photography and filmmaking was really from my second year of college. I had the chance to study abroad, and that's when things really changed for me. When I went to college, my dad gave me, actually, hold on. I don't actually know what the name of this is still. I should probably look it up. This is a Sony Cybershot from I got it in 2013, so I want to say probably older than that. But my dad gave me this when I went to college and I started taking photos for the first time. My dad would shoot photos of me and my sisters all the time, from when we were growing up to the point where nobody really wanted to smile for the photos anymore. That's kind of how it was. I didn't really have a love for taking photos at that time. But when I got to New York and when I had a chance to study abroad, there was just so much to take photos of. You know, you're 18, you move to New York, you finally leave your hometown, all that good stuff. And now you really get to look at the world the way that you want to. So that's when I really fell in love with taking these photos. And then going to Europe, everything's super picturesque over there. And then by the time I came back, I hit record for the first time. It really wasn't until late my sophomore year that I actually started making videos. This was also like prime 2014, 2016 kind of travel videos, things like that. So, you know, you can't blame me for wanting to live that lifestyle, take those types of videos. That's really when the camera became the most important thing for me. And around that time when I got back, I bought my first real camera, which was a Canon T5i. It's my first DSLR. I actually don't have that one with me anymore, which is kind of sad, but that's the one where you get your 50mm lens for the first time and you pull the aperture all the way open and you really see that photography is a bit different than your iPhone or your Samsung or whatever it is. Now that I had the camera, I kept shooting throughout college, all around New York, and eventually I started working in investment banking. I didn't love it, to say the least, but I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. All during those few years, I would sneak out, take the camera with me, get to as many concerts as I could, especially being in New York. There was a concert, every Thursday night. Try to leave if I could early at this job. Obviously, it's not actually early. It's like 8, 9 p.m. I was able to get out, grab a change of clothes, like literally go to the bathroom, change out of my work clothes, shove them back in my bag, get to the show, edit the videos overnight, not sleep, get back to the office. And that kind of helped me have something to really focus on while I was doing a job that I didn't feel like I was really making an impact at. Kind of just felt like recycled. Every time you finish something, another thing pops up and it's kind of the same thing. And that's not something that I saw myself doing. I looked around at the people who were sitting next to me, the people older than me, and it really seemed like they were okay with just figuring it out or just doing the thing that was in front of them at the time. And I was out there being like, hey, what do you really want to do? What's like, what is the thing that this is kind of in place of right now? And a lot of them didn't have any answer. One of the things that you should look at if you're in a job that you don't love is look at someone who's older than you in that job. Look at the person who's 30, 35. And if you really don't want to be that person when you get to that level, then you're probably at the wrong place. So I feel like that's kind of a good litmus test for figuring that out. During that time, I also upgraded to a Sony a7R III, and that's actually the one right over here. This is when things really changed. Like I really started focusing on taking photos and editing and learning as much as I could. This is also when I started calling myself a filmmaker and a photographer. It felt really weird at the time, and I know that a lot of people changing careers or moving into a new space, it's really weird to call yourself the thing that you are working to be, but you've got to do it. You've got to just make that move right away, because if you don't, you're always going to perpetually be in this space of trying to be that thing instead of really just being it. It still feels weird for me to call myself a filmmaker in different groups, because it's like, yes, I make videos, but depending on how someone feels about the word filmmaker, it's like, okay, what movies have you made? Where are your films? And obviously I haven't done that yet. You got to be comfortable with doing the thing and calling yourself the name of that thing. As I was shooting concerts and picking up these different projects while I was still at work, after a few years, I realized that it was time. I didn't want to do this anymore. I knew what it would be year after year, and I gave my 2 weeks notice. So the story goes, I gave my 2 weeks notice to the head of our group. Pretty quick conversation, give her a call. I just said I was kind of figuring things out. So I hung up, and the next day I woke up super sick. This was a Thursday, so I didn't go into work. I was working from home because you can't just not work in investment banking. Anyway, so I'm there and I get a text from one of my friends who sat right next to me. Yo, are you aware that everyone knows now? Like everyone's walking by your desk saying like, oh, this guy's not here anymore. So what I didn't realize was she had told everyone that day, like right after I told her, she'd like sent a memo out to all my bosses saying, yeah, I wouldn't be at work anymore. I didn't know that, so I'd only told my friend who's sitting next to me. Now I'm kind of freaking out, like, all right, these guys think that I literally quit and just left immediately, which was not the case. Friday rolls around, and I'm fully expecting to walk into the office, bombarded with these like stares and people knowing that I'm already leaving. And it was kind of like that, but I ended up talking to everyone, telling them that I was gonna figure it out, even though I knew that I wasn't gonna do finance anymore. Instead of working the rest of the 2 weeks, I was on a bunch of different projects. I was like, okay, I'll finish these. I spoke to a VP of mine and she said, hey, we'll just pay you out. We'll pay you out for the 2 weeks. You don't actually have to stay. So within probably an hour and a half, I talked to everyone, say my goodbyes, do the exit interview, and then I'm out on the street, walking home at 11 a.m. that Friday. and it was like the weirdest thing. I literally have finished doing this job that I didn't love. I was in the office all the time for those few years, and it was like the first moment where I'm in New York by myself without really any responsibilities. First I had college, then I had work, and now I really get to do the thing that I want to do. And with that, you know, that's not the easiest place. And I think that's partly what this channel is about. It's not always the easiest thing, having the freedom that you think that you want. There's a lot of things that comes with that. I definitely wouldn't trade it for my last job or really any other job, but there's a lot, and I'm sure that some of you guys know what that is. This is actually where the real story begins. This whole thing is the backstory, but I'm gonna save the beginning of the real story for another time. So subscribe if you're interested in hearing the rest of the story, learning about filmmaking, photography, really just anything in the creative space. There's so much that goes on in your head when you're creative, and I feel like this is a place where hopefully I can help other people, especially people who are in the place that I was in maybe 5-10 years ago, kind of figure things out. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'll see you next time.